12 NBA players who are gay. What if some of basketball's biggest names were carrying truths, rumors, and private struggles the public was never prepared to face? Behind the highlights, trophies, and superstar images were stories filled with secrecy, pressure, fear, and moments that challenged everything fans thought they knew about masculinity in the NBA. Some men came forward. Some stayed silent. Some were judged before they ever spoke. Stay with me because this is not just about basketball. It is about image identity and the hidden battles that can follow even the most celebrated players in the world. Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant keeps his private life shut tight. Born on September 29, 1988 in Washington, D.C., he became one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. His basketball life is easy to read. His personal life is not. Outside a brief engagement to Monica Wright years ago, the public has seen almost no long-term romantic pattern from him. That silence has done a lot of work. It created a space where rumors kept growing because there was so little confirmed information to replace them. Online whispers about transgender women, scattered stories, and repeated questions about why a superstar that famous stays so private pushed his name into a different kind of conversation. None of those rumors amount to public proof of anything. What they did create was an image of a man people could not figure out, and celebrity culture rarely leaves that alone. The less Durant said, the more people talked. His use of offensive language on social media made the noise even louder. Some saw it as anger and bad judgment. Others saw it as overreaction that only fed more suspicion. Do you think the rumors around Durant grew because of real evidence? Or because he gave the public almost nothing to read? Durant never opened that door. He kept playing, kept scoring, kept winning, and kept his personal life under lock. That decision protected him, but it also made the mystery harder to kill. On the court, he is one of the clearest talents of his generation. Off the court, he remains one of the hardest men in basketball to read. That gap between public greatness and private silence is exactly why people keep dragging his name back into conversations he never clearly chose to join. Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard built a Hall of Fame-level career before his private life became louder than his numbers. Born on December 8, 1985 in Atlanta, Georgia, he entered the NBA as the first overall pick in 2004 and immediately became the face of a franchise. Orlando expected him to become the next great dominant center, and for years he looked exactly like that. He led the Magic to the 2009 NBA Finals, won 3 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards. From 2009 through 2011, made 8 All-Star teams, led the league in rebounding 5 times, and later won a championship with the Lakers in 2020. His resume is too strong to ignore. Then the conversation around him changed. Starting around 2018, public allegations and rumors about relationships with men and transgender women began to attach themselves to his name. The most explosive chapter came through a lawsuit and the media frenzy around it. Howard admitted to a consensual encounter at the center of one dispute, but he never used that moment to clearly define his sexuality. Instead, he pushed back, deflected, and insisted that his private life was nobody else's business. That answer never quieted anything. It made the noise bigger. The public did what it always does with a famous man who refuses to explain himself. It filled the silence with theories. Do you think Dwight Howard was judged more for what was proven, or for what people thought his silence meant? That is where his story sits now. He scored more than 19,000 points, grabbed more than 14,000 rebounds, and established himself as one of the best defensive centers of his generation. Yet many people now talk about his off-court controversies before they talk about his prime. That shift says as much about sports culture as it does about Howard himself. Basketball made him famous. Mystery made him polarizing. Lamar Odom. Lamar Odom's life never stayed in one lane. Born on November 6, 1979 in Queens, New York, he came into basketball carrying grief, instability, and the kind of childhood pain that leaves marks long before fame arrives. On the court, he was extraordinary because he moved like a guard in a forward's body. At 6'10", he handled the ball passed with vision and played with a natural fluidity that made him one of the most gifted talents of his era. His best years with the Lakers produced 2 championships in 2009 and 2010, and his 2011 Sixth Man of the Year award confirmed how valuable he was, even without being the star. Off the court, everything got messier. Marriage to Khloe Kardashian pulled him into reality television and multiplied the attention around his private life. Then came addiction infidelity collapse and the 2015 overdose that almost killed him. That alone would have been enough to define a tragic public arc. But the speculation around his sexuality and relationships later grew in a different direction, when intimate posts from transgender model Danielle Alexis triggered a fresh wave of questions. Odom did not publicly clarify much. The denial around him was careful, limited, and unsatisfying to people who wanted a direct answer. Do you think Lamar Odom's silence protected him? Or did it only turn his private life into an even bigger spectacle? That is the hard part of his story. He has spoken about addiction loss and survival in ways that are deeply human. He has tried to rebuild, tried to recover, and tried to stand back up in public after almost dying in front of the world. But every attempt at repair seems to run into the same problem. People keep treating his life like a mystery to solve instead of a man trying to survive what he has already endured. Ray Allen. Ray Allen spent most of his career looking like the safest kind of superstar. Born on July 20th, 1975 at Castle Air Force Base in California, he built a reputation on discipline, control, professionalism, and one of the purest jump shots basketball has ever seen. He became a 10-time All-Star, won championships with Boston and Miami, and set a three-point record that held until Stephen Curry passed it in 2021. Everything about his public image suggested precision. He looked like a man who kept his life arranged the same way he kept his shooting mechanics. That image is exactly why the 2017 scandal around him landed so hard. Allen said he had been catfished by a man named Bryant Coleman, who he claimed had posed as multiple women online and pulled him into intimate exchanges through deception. Coleman responded with a far more explosive version of the story, alleging that there had been a years-long gay relationship and that Allen knew who he was all along. The dispute became one of those cases that lingered not because the public got answers, but because it never did. No full public release of the alleged evidence settled anything. The story moved into private legal resolution, and the uncertainty remained. Do you think Ray Allen was the victim of deception? Or did the unanswered details keep the scandal alive because too much about it felt unfinished? That is why this still shadows his name in conversations like this. Allen returned to family life, business, philanthropy, and basketball ambassador work, but the scandal did not disappear completely. His shooting form stayed pure. His reputation did not. The contrast between those two facts is what keeps people circling the story years later. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons entered the NBA with the kind of promise that turns a player into a projection screen before he has time to become a person. Born on July 20th, 1996 in Melbourne, Australia, he was sold as a once-in-a-generation talent, a 6'10" playmaker with guard skills, elite vision, defensive range, and the kind of natural gifts teams spend decades trying to find. Early in his career, the resume moved fast. Rookie of the Year, 3 All-Star selections, 2 All-Defensive honors. For a while, it looked like the hard part was over. Then the story split. On the court, his refusal to shoot, his playoff collapse injuries, and mental health struggles cracked the aura around him. Off the court, the gossip took over even faster. High-profile relationships with women kept him in tabloids, but rumors around his private life never really stopped there. Claims from transgender model Amani about alleged messages and a sexual connection pushed his name into a more intrusive kind of public conversation. Simmons did what he often does when the spotlight turns ugly. He went quiet. Do you think Ben Simmons stayed silent because the story was false or because he knew nothing he said would stop people from guessing? That silence fed the mystery. So did the constant presence of close male friends in his orbit, which outsiders turned into another layer of speculation. None of that is proof of anything. What it does show is how quickly an athlete with a stalled career becomes vulnerable to every rumor around him. Simmons is no longer discussed only as a failed jumper or a fallen #1 pick. He is discussed as a man people think they still have not figured out. Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson became famous so young and so explosively that the public started treating every part of his life like a headline before he had time to stabilize any of it. Born on July 6, 2000 in Salisbury, North Carolina, he entered the NBA as the most hyped young prospect since LeBron James. His game made the hype easy to understand. Powerlift, speed, touch, impossible finishes. He looked like a force the league had not seen in years. When healthy, he has played like it. That is why the chaos around his personal life keeps hitting so hard. The talent is not in doubt. The rest never stops wobbling. His relationships became public drama faster than his body could stay on the floor. Social media rants, adult film scandal arguments over betrayal, competing women in the story, and online rumors involving a transgender man all turned his name into something bigger than basketball gossip. Most of those claims were never confirmed. Some were denied. Some were specific enough to keep people talking anyway. Zion mostly stayed quiet, and that silence let the noise keep growing. Do you think Zion's silence protects him? Or does it only make every rumor around him feel bigger? That is the problem with being famous before your life is fully formed. Every mistake looks permanent. Every allegation feels amplified. Every messy detail gets treated like evidence of something deeper. Zion Williamson is still young enough to rewrite the arc of his career, but the public already talks about him as if his off-court life and his injured body are fighting to define him before his prime even fully begins. Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert built his reputation on certainty in one place and uncertainty everywhere else. Born on June 26, 1992 in Saint-Quentin, France, he became one of the defining defensive anchors of his generation. Long arms, verticality, disciplined timing, rebounding rim deterrence, his game is made of structure. 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, multiple All-NBA teams, All-Star appearances, elite rebounding numbers. Everything about his basketball identity is easy to measure. His personal life is the opposite. Rumors around Gobert have circulated for years without ever hardening into proof. He has been publicly linked to women, but fan speculation about his sexuality kept surfacing anyway. Some people tried to read his body language. Others turned close male friendships into material for gossip. Then came moments that made things worse, especially when he was fined for a homophobic gesture. That incident gave critics more to work with. Some read it as immaturity. Some read it as projection. Gobert never opened the subject in a direct way. He just kept moving, kept playing, and kept letting the questions hang there. Do you think Rudy Gobert is being judged on facts or on the meanings people keep forcing onto isolated moments? That is what makes his public image so complicated. He is one of the clearest defensive players of his era and one of the blurriest public figures when the conversation leaves basketball. The lack of evidence has not stopped speculation. It has almost helped it. In his case, privacy has not created peace. It has created a permanent rumor loop. Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks built his fame by making people dislike him on purpose. Born on January 22, 1996 in Mississauga, Ontario, he came into the league with grit edge and the willingness to be the defender who talks as hard as he plays. That villain identity grew fast. He became known for antagonizing stars, leaning into confrontation, and making sure people left games remembering him even when his scoring was not the story. On the court, that role gave him shape. Off the court, it made every rumor around him easier to believe because the public already saw him as combustible. The controversy around Big Bambina did not stay simple gossip for long. It became a broader online argument about gender identity cheating and what Brooks might or might not be hiding. His ex's accusation gave the story its first blast. Bambina's response, and then the fact that she felt forced to publicly prove she was not transgender, made the whole thing uglier. Brooks never really stepped in to settle it. He stayed quiet, and the quiet gave people room to invent the rest. Do you think Dylan Brooks kept silent because the story was beneath him? Or because silence let him avoid a conversation he did not want to have? That is what made the rumor stick. It was never about proof. It was about how easily his name fit inside scandal. Brooks kept being Brooks, defending hard-talking sharply, keeping his villain mask on. But once gossip starts living next to a player's identity, even the things he says nothing about begin to shape how people read him. John Amaechi. John Amaechi did not become important because he was the biggest star in the league. He became important because he spoke after years of silence in a culture built to punish exactly that kind of truth. Born in Boston and raised in England, he never fit the standard image of an NBA player even before sexuality entered the conversation. He was intellectual, visibly different in temperament, and shaped by a path into basketball that never felt ordinary. He went undrafted, fought for his career, and carved out years in the NBA through persistence rather than hype. Then in 2007, he did what almost nobody around his sport had dared to do. He came out publicly as gay. He did not do it through rumor scandal or a court filing. He did it through his own voice and his own memoir. He described a locker room culture soaked in homophobia slurs and pressure to conform. He did not romanticize any part of it. He wrote about what it cost to live under that kind of silence. Do you think John Amaechi changed more by coming out or by explaining so clearly what the silence inside sports actually does to a person? That is why his story still matters. He did not leave basketball and disappear. He built a second life in psychology, leadership, and inclusion work, proving that the courage he showed in speaking publicly was not a one-time act. He forced basketball to face a truth it had spent years trying to keep off the floor. Isaac Humphries. Isaac Humphries did not wait until the end of his playing life to tell the truth. Born in Sydney in 1998, he came through Australian basketball, spent time around the American system, and built a professional career in the NBL. His resume is respectable. His historical significance comes from something else. In 2022, while still an active professional player, he publicly came out as gay. That decision carried risk because men's basketball has long treated openness around sexuality as something safer after retirement than during competition. Humphries described what secrecy had done to him. He talked about depression, fear, and a suicide attempt in 2019. He spoke about deleting apps, sneaking around, and lying just to keep an image intact in a hyper-masculine environment. He did not make coming out sound glamorous. He made it sound necessary. That is what gave his words power. Do you think Isaac Humphries' biggest act of strength was coming out, or admitting how close silence came to destroying him first? The response showed that basketball culture had moved but not far enough to make a moment like that easy. He became more than an athlete overnight. He became proof that a man can still compete, still belong, and still be openly gay in professional basketball. He also became a mirror for how much fear the sport has forced people to carry in order to stay accepted. Humphries did not retire into honesty. He chose honesty while still playing. Jason Collins. Jason Collins was never the kind of NBA player who built his name on flashy scoring or superstar headlines. He built it on disciplined defense size and doing the work that often goes unnoticed until a team stops winning without it. Born on December 2, 1978 in Northridge, California, Collins came into the league as a 7-footer who understood positioning, physicality, and sacrifice. He played 13 NBA seasons, appeared in more than 700 regular season games, and helped the New Jersey Nets reach back-to-back NBA Finals in 2002 and 2003. On paper, that career already deserved respect. But what made Jason Collins unforgettable had less to do with box scores than with what he carried in silence while living inside one of the most masculine environments in American sports. For years, Collins lived with a private truth that he did not feel safe revealing. He moved through locker rooms, flights, practices, media sessions, and relationships while hiding a central part of himself. That kind of concealment changes everything. It affects how a man speaks, how he trusts, how he loves, and how much of his own life he feels allowed to inhabit. Even his long engagement to Carolyn Moose eventually collapsed under the weight of what he still could not say out loud. Then, in 2013, Jason Collins did something no active NBA player had ever done before. He publicly came out as gay. That moment did not just change his life, it changed the league. Do you think Jason Collins showed more courage by coming out publicly, or by surviving all those years before he could? That is where his story becomes bigger than basketball. Jason Collins did not need to be the highest scorer to become historic. He became historic because he broke a wall that had stood in professional sports for generations. He showed that honesty could matter as much as talent, and that a man could still be strong, respected, and professional without hiding who he was. His legacy is not built on mystery. It is built on truth delivered at the exact moment the sport needed it most. Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was never pulled into this subject because of whispers about his own sexuality. He entered it because he did something many famous athletes still refuse to do when the culture gets ugly. He stood beside his child in full public view and did not flinch. Born on January 17, 1982 in Chicago, Wade built one of the most respected careers of his era. He was a champion, a finals MVP, a franchise icon, and one of the greatest shooting guards basketball has ever produced. His image had already been secured through winning. What changed his meaning in public life came later, and it had nothing to do with points, championships, or highlights. When his daughter Zaya came out as transgender, Wade stepped into a different kind of pressure. He did not hide behind vague statements or let other people define what support should look like. He admitted that he had to learn. He admitted that he did not know everything at first. That honesty mattered. It made his support feel real instead of polished. He was not speaking as a brand. He was speaking as a father trying to protect his child in a culture that still treats trans youth like a political argument instead of human beings. Do you think Dwayne Wade changed more minds through basketball greatness, or through the way he chose love over public approval? That is what gives his story weight. He did not become important here because of scandal. He became important because he used a Hall of Fame voice to defend a child who was being watched by millions. In a sports world built on hard edges and old codes, Wade showed that strength can look like listening, learning, and refusing to abandon your family when the backlash gets loud. Some told the truth openly. Some stayed silent. Some were pulled into rumors they never fully answered. But every one of these stories reveals the same pressure point: how much of a man's identity is the public entitled to demand just because he is famous? Is basketball really ready to accept every athlete as he is, or does? The culture still rewards silence more than honesty. Which story stayed with you the most, and who do you think showed the greatest courage? Those who came out, those who spoke up for others, or those who kept surviving under suspicion? Share your thoughts in the comments and follow and subscribe to CineLegacy Vault Hollywood for more powerful stories.